Welcome to episode 670 of the Entertainment 2.0 podcast, brought to you by thedigitalmediazone.com. I'm Josh Pollard.
And I'm Richard Gunther, and this is the show that puts you in control of your favorite movies, music, shows, and games. And there's a little bit of news in this pre-holiday, pre-CES season.
A little bit. And some that kind of surprised me, and some, the first story even, that makes me a little bit sad because it means I've got work to do. So what are we talking about this week? Well, Channels DVR, they're ending support for the NVIDIA Shield. Max, one of our favorite streaming services, they're introducing 24/7 live streams. We'll talk about what that actually means for you. CNBC has started their own live streaming service. We're going to give you another reminder about Spotify's car thing. And Xbox is now allowing some people to start streaming games from their console. And Richard, you're probably already chuckling at me because we are not even 2 minutes into this and my throat already sounds bad because I ate ice cream before the show. And Richard is always reminding me, don't eat ice cream before the show.
Well, but yeah, we make life decisions.
I oftentimes make poor life decisions around ice cream. And now, unfortunately, you, dear listeners, have to suffer the consequences. Richard, let's talk about the sad news. The sad news, at least for me, to start. And that is around Channels DVR. Channels DVR came out a few years ago now, and it kind of quickly became my go-to DVR in my house. I've bounced around between lots of them. I used HD home runs. I've used Plexes. I've used TiVo briefly. And then, of course, if you go way back, I used Windows Media Center the most. And Channels is the one that I've been using for the last few years, partly because the interface is really good. It kind of beats out. I mean, it's better than most of the other things that we talked about.
It's fine.
Like
Plex, it's designed by developers.
Yes, but it's still better than Plex. It's way better than HD Home Run DVR's user interface.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And for me, the benefit was that I could run the server aspect of it right on my NVIDIA Shield TV streaming device. So, which is what I've been doing with my Plex media server also. So I've got a 4 terabyte, I think, USB hard drive connected right to my NVIDIA Shield. It holds all of my Plex media. It also, well, not all, but some. And then, of course, I configured it to hold all of the recordings from Channels DVR. And I've also got a NAS for additional storage for movies and things like that for Plex. But it gave me the ability to have everything running on one little tiny box that barely consumes any power, instead of having to run another PC to be the server for these types of things. And, those all consume a whole lot more energy and they're more work to maintain. And this was super easy.
Right.
So I did that. I've been doing it. I actually, as longer term listeners of the show know, I don't watch tons of live TV. I don't watch tons of regular TV at all, with the most frequent exceptions being sports. If you're going to watch football, it's probably on a local network television channel. And I've got an HD home run connected to all of this with an over-the-air antenna. And for a while, this wasn't even really set up. Like, I think I had hard reset my NVIDIA Shield and just I didn't really have much of a need to record, so I was like, it's fine, I can just use the HD Home Run app. But literally like 3 weeks ago, I reset all of this up.
Oh, bad timing.
Yeah. So it's all set up again and working, but it won't be for long because March 1st, 2025, Channels is officially discontinuing support for running the server on an NVIDIA Shield. So what does that actually mean for people like me? It means that it's going to stop getting updates for sure. It doesn't immediately stop working, but eventually it will. Eventually. They're going to do things to the client interface that just won't work anymore with that old version of the DVR server. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't know when, but it's going to happen, and there probably won't really be much notice for it. So if you're in this boat, you should look to do something else. And fortunately, you've got a lot of options. And if you're thinking, this is going to be hard, right? It's actually not. So we, of course, have a link to the news announcement for this in the show notes over at thedigitalmediazone.com. And in that article, it also has a link to a migration guide. So they talk about all of the other types of machines that you can use as a server. Of course, if you've got a Windows or a Mac or a Linux box running around or laying around, that can be your server. It can run on many common NAS devices. You've got options. And then maybe the more important thing is that the migration experience actually isn't all that complicated. From a web browser, you go to your server's web page interface and check a couple of boxes to essentially say, start disabling this so that other devices stop looking for it. And then there's a button to just download the database. And it'll give you a file, stick it somewhere, go to your new box that you're going to use as the server, and as part of the setup experience, you can say restore from a backup, and you restore from the backup that you just made, and that will make sure that all of your guide data is still correct, all of your series recordings are all there, like everything is there, all of the metadata for your recorded shows, and that's true regardless of whether you were recording to an external USB drive like I was, or if you were recording things to a NAS, like it all just looks like it works pretty easily. The migration document is not miles long. It's fairly short. And if they can make a migration document for moving a DVR server to another box that short, that tells me it's actually pretty easy.
Yeah.
I haven't tried it yet because Richard just told me about this news like a couple of days ago. So maybe that's my project this coming weekend. But it doesn't look too bad. It just kind of stinks to have to do it. And they're not super clear on their reasons why. In the article, it just says, well, due to changes in the rules of the Google Play Store and other technical limitations of hosting channels DVR server on an Android system. I don't know what that means. I'm struggling to even come up with what I think that might mean because Plex still works.
Right.
And Plex doesn't seem to be backing away from this idea of supporting NVIDIA Shield TV as a Plex media server.
Yeah. And I don't know. I also wonder if the platform is just so old that it has become impractical for them to support it anymore. Like, I don't know what it's like to develop for this platform. And even though they brought it up to date with more of a Google TV-like experience, does that mean that developing for it is just like building any other Android app for Google TV, or do you still have to do things special for this device? Particularly if you have a video player as part of your product. So it could be that it's just not economically viable for them to continue to maintain for this platform because it's so old.
Well, the video part, the video playback part of the app experience isn't going anywhere. You can still have the Channels app as your client experience running on NVIDIA Shield. That's not going away. But the server aspect is, I think you're probably right there that it's probably harder to support. And they probably looked at the numbers of people who were doing it and they were like, we've only got one guy doing this, some dude in Ohio. We don't really need to keep supporting this.
It's probably more than just that one dude in Ohio.
I'm sure it's more than that. But it's but I wouldn't be surprised if it is a very small fraction of the user base that's doing this on an NVIDIA Shield TV, especially like you said, as the NVIDIA Shield gets older and older and older, and not really any signs from NVIDIA that they're going to give us a new one, despite the fact that we're getting new boxes from ON and from Google directly, but nothing there. Now, it is interesting that some of those newer devices, like the ON 4K Pro that you and I both have, I don't think I can run this or Plex on either of those.
No, they are not designed to be hosting anything. They are basically windows to the content out there.
Yeah. And maybe that gets into some of the technical limitations that they're talking about here, that as Google continues to update the Google TV experience, which is still built on Android TV, that they're maybe starting to sunset some of the features that are required here. And if that's the case, then I think we will see Plex stop supporting this eventually too. But I don't really know. I'm not digging into the Google TV developer documents much anymore. So I don't know what sorts of features they're sunsetting nowadays.
Okay. All right. Well, so that's some bad news. We have some good news. And on the good news side, Max is looking into and currently testing some live streaming channels for their customers. So Josh had this article in the lineup and I'm like, wait a minute, they weren't doing this already? So many of the services like Peacock and others already have live TV as part of the offering. So I just kind of assumed that it was also included in Max, but it's not. If you wanted to watch the live HBO channel or HBO 2 or HBO Classic or HBO whatever additional adjective you're going to add to it, then those were only available through cable.
Right.
Maybe I'm thinking back to HBO Go or HBO Now. I don't know. I thought it was included in one of these, but they are now incorporating this into the experience. So you'll be able to watch any of the HBO channels that you would normally see if you had HBO on a cable subscription. Now, right now, the test is limited to customers who have the ad-free version of Max. So it's for the folks that are paying the most amount of money, which kind of makes sense. And remember that the streaming service that has ads is going to be a different experience than what you're going to see on cable, because the cable service does not have ads. Well, except for promoting their own stuff, but we're seeing that at the beginning and end of every show anyway. So I think this is really smart. And frankly, like I said, the fact that it didn't exist already, I'm glad to see that they're adding it. Now, there's no indication that they plan on changing the pricing model at all. But what is interesting is that the way that they're doing this, think about all of the content that is on Max. They have so many different networks that are incorporated and providers that are incorporated into Max that have network equivalents, like all the home and discovery and food and travel and all that sort of stuff. They could potentially, they're not saying that they will, but they could potentially add access to all of that as either built into the Max experience or maybe an add-on that you could get with your Max experience. So as more and more people are cutting the cord and eliminating cable alternatives and relying solely on streaming, to me, I just think this makes a lot of sense. Go to where your customers are.
Right. And I think some people, especially those who have spent most of their lives maybe using streaming services like Netflix, might be wondering, well, why do I need these live streaming channels like TV when I can just go and watch whatever I want whenever I want? And I think the answer is just, well, maybe you don't know what you want to watch. There's so much on these services, and sometimes you've had a long day and you just want to sit down on the couch and just turn anything on. And this is how you do that. And that's clearly a popular enough use case that we're seeing service after service start to do this. So I guess the question is, Richard, you mentioned that at least for right now, it's only available to the people with the ad-free level of the service. Do you think it'll stay that way as like another incentive?
I absolutely do. I don't think that they're going to change that. I think it makes sense for them to have this as a carrot and an additional thing that you get if you're paying for the higher tier. So, in my mind, that's a smart move. Now, the other thing that we didn't really talk about is that the experience that this gives you is going to be a lot like a DVR.
Mm-hmm.
So you go and you watch this stuff, and it's not just like you're watching it on cable TV linearly without any control. You'll have the ability to pause and rewind and stuff like that, just like you can as if you were watching it with the DVR. I don't know what the buffer is. I don't think they've even talked about what that is yet. And I haven't had a chance to try this out to see if I even have it. But I think that's a nice thing. Now, the one thing that we don't think, although it sure would be nice, is that if you use a system like, for example, Google TV, that also has an area specifically dedicated to linear programming like Google TV, man, it'd be great if they could incorporate those channels into that guide. We have no knowledge that they're thinking of doing that or that that's on anybody's radar, but that would make this experience a whole lot more useful.
It would be great. And I think the ideal scenario would be you go to that live section, you've got your big guide, you just pick something quickly while because maybe you're just starting something while you're wanting to go and find something more specific. And so you just pop it on the main HBO channel. And then to get a picture-in-picture experience while you load up another app. Like
well, now you're just going crazy.
Right? Like, wouldn't that be great? You open up the full Max app and start looking through all of the different movies and stuff. No, I think I want to watch that. And then you just seamlessly switch into whatever movie you want. That's what we really want. That's what we were all trying to get way back in the days with Windows Media Center before we even had all of these streaming services. Like, we just want to make consuming anything from all of these different services as easily as possible. And that is a feature that we got with cable DVRs.
Yes.
With a lot of them.
Yep. Absolutely.
So that would be like, which makes it feel ridiculous to describe this as like the dream scenario. Oh, you mean this thing that I could do in 2007? Yes. That thing. I want it back.
Right.
Because I also want to do that. Like, I want ESPN Plus to work this way. Like, let me just throw on whatever random hockey game is on while I figure out what I want to watch on any other service.
Yeah, and I might argue that there's a more compelling use case there.
Yes. Yeah, because I'm probably not going to get like fully sucked into that hockey game or whatever, unless it was one that I was already planning to watch. But you could do this with news channels. News and sports are the main things that you're probably going to do that with. Or maybe if they had a channel that did like music videos, but they don't really do that anymore, right?
I don't even know where you can go and watch just nothing but music videos anymore. I think Apple has something.
Yeah. I mean, is there an MTV that is like an MTV streaming service that's like the old days of MTV when it was actually mostly music videos?
No idea.
I don't know. I'd be curious. Now I need to go and look for that. Maybe a future segment on the show.
It's called YouTube.
It really is. It really is. But again, I want it to just be playing, right? I want it to be the radio.
Yep.
While I go and look for something else with this in picture. Okay, well, maybe live news is the thing that you want for that sort of thing. And we got a little bit of an announcement about a service doing just that, but maybe from a less likely source, because this time around it's CNBC, primarily known for financial news, a lot of business type news, but it is a wall-to-wall 24/7 cable streaming outlet. And it's a pretty popular one in the business space. And so they are launching their own streaming service. You will not be surprised to know how creative they got with the name. It's the streaming version of CNBC. So it's CNBC Plus.
Of course it is.
Just like ESPN Plus and Disney Plus and all of the other pluses out there. So, I mean, at least you know what the plus means. It's the live streaming service. So lots of channels have tried to do this in the past. They typically are like, here's some content and lots of essentially like on-demand content to a lot of our shows and maybe exclusive on-demand shows that are available. That's not really at all what this is. It is basically just the live stream of the service that you can access anywhere. So if you're in Hong Kong for a business deal, like you can still watch CNBC if you want. It does have on-demand viewing of their shows, but there aren't going to be exclusive CNBC Plus shows. This is primarily just for you to be able to watch CNBC from anywhere on mobile devices, on your TV, on your web browser, anywhere. And I think that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that's a smart move because you're just adding to the burden of carrying a new outlet like this if you also have to create new content for it. So I think this makes total sense. What I don't think makes any sense is the frickin' price.
You don't want to pay $14.99 a month for a live stream of CNBC?
Are you kidding me? For one station, they're going to expect me to pay $15 a month. Them's HBO prices.
They are HBO prices, but this isn't an entertainment network.
I know, but let's think about this. How well did CNN do when they tried to come out with their? Oh, right, it was such a failure they closed it immediately, and then they tried to relaunch it again. And by the way, I should remind people that this network is among the networks that is being spun out into a separate company because Comcast, Universal, NBC, whatever it's called these days, doesn't want the burden of the cable stations on their bottom line.
Right. Which is probably the bigger reason why they're doing this, right? Because they want the network to still exist. And this is the way that it can still exist, even if it's not a cable network.
I guess. I don't know. I'm frankly surprised that they didn't try and do something where they bundled it with the MSNBC, which, oh, by the way, also has its own streaming thing. Like, why not try and put some of these things together? Why not even, add it as an add-on to Peacock. But I don't know. It's weird. It's very weird.
I think they are really just trying to target the hardcore business user who's going to say, this is crucial for my job. And maybe they've been saying that they only subscribe to cable or satellite because of this, because they've got it on all day. And now they can say, well, instead of paying $100 a month for cable, I can pay $15 a month for CNBC Plus. And maybe because I'm doing it for my job, I can even expense it in a way that you're probably not going to get your company to pay for your Peacock subscription.
Right. Well, in that respect, it's kind of like Bloomberg TV, right?
Yes.
And I don't recall whether Bloomberg TV has a streaming option or not, but they are the name in this game. And if anybody was expected to charge a premium for their streaming service of Bloomberg stuff, I'd expect it to be them. CNBC, and maybe I'm just behind the times, but CNBC strikes me as a second fiddle here. Like, they're not in the first seat.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps, but it's funny that you talk about like this being a premium tier, because this actually isn't even the premium tier. This is just one aspect. They have other services that you can subscribe to. The service that has the best value, Richard, is called CNBC All Access. It gets you the live stream, plus a bunch more stuff, plus Jim Cramer's research and portfolio and his daily and monthly meetings for a cool $600 a year.
Yeah. I totally want to pay for him to scream at me. Totally. Yep. I'm all into that.
So there are even more premium offerings here from CNBC. Yeah, I'll be curious. Like, this might do well because it's targeted at a very specific business audience, or it could completely bomb the way that CNN did. But if it's going to go as poorly as CNN, then we'll be reporting on it in another week or two, because that's about all the longer CNN lasted.
That did not last very long.
It was less than a month before that thing got shut down.
Yeah.
It was really bad, really bad.
Which was also announced and launched right around the time that they were making an organizational transition. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, talking about things that failed, number of times we have talked about Spotify's car thing, this dedicated device that some group of geniuses at Spotify decided made sense to purchase hardware. I'm talking about hardware to have Spotify and only Spotify streaming through the Bluetooth in your car. This was doomed from the beginning. And when it came out, we were like, this is never going to last. And then they announced that they were going to shut it down, but you'd still be able to use it. And then they announced that, okay, it's really going to shut down as of this date. And well, okay, it's happening now. So people's devices, I believe it was December 1st, actually, people's devices stopped working. And if you didn't go and get your refund for this device, thankfully, they're smart enough to refund people for wasting money on a piece of dedicated hardware for their service, then you have until the middle of January, until January 14th, to go and get your refund. So, Josh, this wasn't anything that ever interested you, was it?
No, because I have Android Auto.
Oh, well, yeah, there's that too. This would have been catering to a car that wouldn't be capable of providing Spotify through the car some other way.
Well, right. But if you have Bluetooth on your car stereo,
yeah,
which this, I believe, required,
It did.
then you always could just do Spotify from your phone through Bluetooth to your car.
But Josh, then you have to look at your phone instead of this dedicated device that could spectacularly be mounted on your dash and look just beautiful.
I mean, it does. Like, listen, this hardware does look nice, and it does give you a less distracted driving experience. Like, I do still think that there were good ideas behind this, just not enough good ideas behind this.
Yeah. You know what would have been a better idea? A car mode in Spotify.
They have a car mode.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then,
but it didn't like suddenly make a giant volume dial pop out of your phone, and it didn't make it so that your phone stops giving you notifications and stuff like that could be distracting while you're driving.
Yeah. I mean, your phone itself should have things that do that. But anyway, I thought this was an absurd idea from the beginning. It's finally gone. And if you spent money on one, get it back. Just go to their website and make sure that you apply for your refund, because you deserve it.
For sure. For sure. But don't just throw it away. We're going to link to an article from The Verge that announced this. And in that article, they have links to some articles from 9 to 5 Google that show you how you can hack these things to actually be useful. Like, there is an open source utility out there called Desk Thing, and you can take your car thing and replace the software that's running on it to make it something that connects to your computer, and it's an extra display with a couple of buttons and a knob on it that you can use to control your computer. And that's pretty cool.
That is a riot and nothing I would ever do, but I have to respect that.
I would absolutely consider this. Like, I saw that and I was like, I wonder if I can get a car thing on eBay for like $10 and do this, because that might be kind of fun. But I also have a Stream Deck, which gives me buttons and stuff already, so I don't know that I really need it.
Yeah.
But it would be cool. It'd be very cool. What if you could use that as a teleprompter?
That'd be really tiny.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit wider than the camera that you're staring at, though. Like, it might work.
Well, yeah, but based on the thing that I have sitting on my desk right now, teleprompter is more like, which I haven't yet installed, a teleprompter is more like 8 or 9 inches diagonally. So,
yeah. Well, there you go. So if you've got a car thing, get your refund, and then go check out Desk Thing and some of these other third-party options for hacking this thing into something useful instead of just a pile of e-waste.
Or take it to Best Buy so that it gets recycled appropriately.
Yes. If you're not going to hack it, do that. Don't throw it away. Don't throw it away. All right. One gaming story for you this week, and it's from Xbox. We mentioned probably 2 episodes ago that Xbox had started rolling out the ability for you to use their xCloud game streaming functionality to stream games that you own. It's somewhat limited. The library is not the entire Xbox library. Right now, it's roughly 50 games that if you own them, you can stream them from the cloud in a web browser, on a mobile device, on smart TV apps. Where you haven't been able to do it, though, is from an Xbox. If you had an Xbox at home connected to a TV, you couldn't do streaming of your own games from the cloud yet. Now you can, if you're one of the people who has your console set up in the Xbox Insider program. It's their early access program where you get to test new features before they launch. And it's available now if you're in a couple of the Insider rings. One of the things that I think is cool about this is, like, kind of speaking of not turning old devices into e-waste, this works on the Xbox Series X and the Series S, of course, but it also works on the Xbox One. So if you've got an ancient Xbox One from 2013, you could use that as a box that will stream games from the cloud, and it just works. And, and might be the only way for you to use that device to play a more recent game. If it's an Xbox Series X only game, you didn't have any options for playing those on an Xbox One. And now for some of them, this will be an option for you. They've built a couple of usability features in here for helping you find the games that you could play. Go into the My Games and Apps section. If you go to full library and owned games, they'll just show up there. And if they can be streamed from the cloud, they'll have a little cloud icon on them. Another option that you can do, go into the filters section, and there's a filter called Ready to Play, which is typically going to mean like it's installed on your Xbox, but there's also a sub-filter there of cloud gaming. And that's going to include the games that you own that you could stream from the cloud, plus the Game Pass Ultimate games that you can stream from the cloud. So available now to Xbox insiders. Normally, things that are released like this to insiders, it's usually less than a month before it comes to general availability for everybody to be able to use. So this should be right around the corner for everybody else. And the last caveat there, you're still using their servers. That's still resource intensive for them. So it does still require an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription, which if you're going to pay the full price is $19.99 a month.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, this is currently available for insiders. Any idea on when it's supposed to get wide rollout?
They never actually say, but it's typically just a couple of weeks. Like, unless the only exceptions that I've seen to that in the past is when they really needed some feedback to go back and tweak some things. But this is not really that different from, like, I don't expect them to radically change this experience from what you get in a web browser. So my guess is we will have this no later than this time next month.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for our news this week. So, Richard, let's talk about what's going on in our entertainment centers.
Yeah, a ton. It's been 2 weeks. Been watching a couple more episodes of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Watched a few more episodes of Jessica Jones Season 2. I'm so sad, Josh. What We Do in the Shadows is going to end in about a week. There's one new episode we haven't seen yet that just came out, and then the final episode called Finale after that. And I'm so bummed because I loved this show.
This is a series finale?
This is a series finale. Yep. It is the end of this spinoff of the Taika Waititi movie. And I think they did 6 seasons in total, and it's just been such a blast. I am caught up on Abbott Elementary. They had a couple fun holiday episodes. And we are caught up on Ghosts as well. I've been watching through Agatha all along. I think I'm 2/3 of the way through now. We just found out who the kid is. So we have a bit more to go before I'm finished with that. I don't remember, Josh, is this a story that is expected to continue, or is this a filler the way the WandaVision was?
I think it's just kind of a filler.
Okay, so it's a bridge from one thing to probably something in the movie universe.
Probably.
Okay. All right. And then I got back to watching a couple additional episodes of the Bob Newhart Show, including, coincidentally enough, a holiday Christmas episode. So that just kind of landed perfectly. Haven't watched any more of Silo yet. So I mentioned that I had watched the first episode of the second season. I haven't watched any more yet. because I really need to sit down and pay serious attention to that. And I haven't had that sort of intense, heavy focus these last couple of days or weeks as we go into the holiday season.
And you can only watch it at night when it's dark so that you have a chance of being able to see what's going on the TV.
And there's that too. I don't know if I mentioned this before. I don't think I did, but right before Thanksgiving, we watched a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. And wow, I forgot how terrible that was.
Dang.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. And then I finished the book that I was listening to, Cue the Sun, which is a history of reality television. Really, really enjoyed that. And it sounds like I'm going to have a couple more weeks till we pick the next book club book. So I need to find something because I'm going to be heading down to the rental property next week. I need something to listen to on the way down. So I'll have to get a pick before I head down there. And then I mentioned that I want to kind of help promote some of the podcasts that I listen to. We've done this in the past. One that I wanted to call up was another one from another friend, Text Message. That's TECH''S, as in the text message. And this is the podcast from my friend Nate Langson in England. And he has a podcast focused really on tech in the UK. And he and his partner Ian on the show have been talking, and they've kind of reinvented the show. Instead of making it a news show, they're putting out evergreen content with each episode talking about a facet of technology and its history. So as an example, they had an entire episode about Bluetooth. They had an entire episode about dongles. It's just fascinating how deep they dive into these different like tech things that we all take for granted. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, I think it's a great new spin on the show. And there's so many things that they could go into. They're currently on a break until the new year, but they already have like half a dozen or more of this format of episode out. So go back and check them out if you're interested.
That's cool. I might have to pick that up. That sounds really cool.
Very cool.
I like it.
All right, Josh, how about you?
Okay. So a couple of new things here. So the first one, and this is admittedly a little bit more smart homey than entertainment news, but one of the things that we talked about over the last few months with both the On 4K Pro device coming out and then Google releasing their own Google TV streamer for, God, I can't remember the names of any of these things anymore. I need Post-it notes for the names of all of these devices, clearly. One of the things that the Google branded device got first, despite the fact that they're all running the same Google TV operating system, was Google Home integration. So the ability to control your Google Home devices through a graphical interface. You've been able to do it with your voice on all of these devices from the beginning. But they just brought that functionality to the On device that I've been using, the On 4K Pro. And there's really only one device that I wanted to use this for. And it's something else that I bought during the November, we're going to pretend like the entire month of November is Black Friday sales season. I picked up a Google Nest video doorbell. And because I had been using a Wise camera, and Wise, like, you get what you pay for with Wise. Like, they work, but they're not great. And the Google integration has never been good. Like, I've had Wise cameras for, like, since Wise came out as a company, I've never once been able to view a Wise stream from that Google Nest home tablet thingy that's sitting in my counter. Never once has it ever worked. And then like, I mean, there's just all sorts of problems. So I got the actual Nest doorbell. It's great. I love it. It's really, really good. Actually records like everything that you want to see. And one of the cool things that you can do with these Google TV branded devices is see your doorbell camera on your TV. One thing I haven't actually tried yet is you can configure an option so that when your doorbell rings, it will pop a notification on your TV if it's on, and so that you can see the camera right there. But you can also just open up the settings and say view this stream and just watch your doorbell live. That's maybe kind of weird if you don't have a reason, but you can, and it's cool and works really well. So if you've got if you're into the Google Home ecosystem and you have one of these on 4K devices, go and check this out. Like, you probably got software update and didn't even know it. Hold the home button and it goes to the Google Home integration to see all of that stuff. So it's nice.
That's pretty cool. I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah. Yeah. It probably doesn't work with like Ring and all of that, but it definitely works with the Nest devices.
Well, right. And I have a Nest thermostat that I used Google Home to set up and everything. So at the very least, I should be able to see that. And I think my Hue devices are on Google.
Okay. Yeah, you can. I have a Nest thermostat also, and you can see it. I don't know if I can adjust it, but you can at least see the current temperature and all of that stuff. So.
Yeah, but you could always, I'm assuming, use the voice remote to just make a change to the thermostat.
Probably. I've never used voice to control my thermostat.
All right. I'm going to have to give it a try.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. On the gaming front, some Diablo. We're very near the end of the Vessel of Hatred expansion. It's still good. Still love that game. Played a little bit of Call of Duty. Nothing, newer out of the ordinary there. And then I mentioned on the last episode that I tried out the trial of the game Tales of Kenzera Zhao. If that just sounded like a mess of words and letters, I'll put a link to it in the show notes, I guess. It's a Metroidvania game, and I remember the last time I said that, Richard was like, a what now?
Right.
If you're a gamer, you know what a Metroidvania is. I'm probably 3/4 of the way through the game so far, and it's been such an enjoyable experience. It is by no means the hardest Metroidvania that I've ever played. It's not really that hard, which makes it a little bit more of a chill experience, which is maybe not normal for this type of game, but it's just been a lot of fun. So go, if you like that kind of game, get it. Like, I've enjoyed everything about it. So that's Tales of Kenzera Zhao. Movies, no new movies that I've watched. In terms of watching things on TV, it's been a crazy couple of weeks for me. I've watched Lions football, and that's about it. Wasn't going to miss that. Richard, did you know that the most streamed was it most streamed ever? That might be possible. The most live streamed sporting event, at least recently, was the Lions game last week.
Really?
It was on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And so, because Amazon Prime has Thursday night football games this season, I think that started last year. And like, I think it's just that friggin' everybody has Amazon Prime, so anybody can watch Thursday night football. It's not like it's only on Max or something like that where
right,
you're paying $20 a month for it. Like, it's just included with your free Amazon shipping.
Right.
So, yeah. Go Lions. They rock. Super Bowl for sure. Okay, books. Last time I mentioned that I had been reading through the Silo series books. I did decide to pause on book 2 when I realized the second season of the TV show is still book 1. I'm just going to wait and come back to this.
Yeah, smart.
I've got plenty of other books to read. So I then remembered, oh yeah, Jason Schreier's new book is available. It wasn't available from my library, but it was available through Spotify's audiobook catalog. And it is a book called Play Nice: The Rise, Fall, and Future of Blizzard Entertainment. And Jason Schreier, he writes for Bloomberg. He is the investigative journalist in the video game space. He is very well connected. He writes really, really interesting books and articles and all of that. And he spent a lot of time digging into the history and getting literally hundreds of interviews with current and former Blizzard employees. And this starts at the beginning. It goes all the way through the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard. So up until pretty recent stuff. It's a great book. It's really detailed. If you've been a gamer for a long time, there's going to be parts of the story that you're going to be like, I remember when that happened, and that was hilarious. It's good. It's a really good time. Some of his previous books that have dug deep into the video game industry have been pretty depressing because it's not a great industry to work in. And there's still some of that in this book. Like Blizzard, for a lot of people, especially women, wasn't really a great place to work.
Right.
Or QA testers, things like that. So it does continue to expose the negatives to working inside of the video game industry. But there's a lot of other good and entertaining stuff in this book too. So if you're into video games at all, check out Play Nice by Jason Schreier. It's a really good book. And then the book that I'm reading for my work book club, because we don't just read business books, we mostly read entertaining novels, is a book called Cloud Cuckoo Land. I can't even really give you much of a synopsis. I'm not very far into it. I will tell you that it is a story that has a timeline that stretches thousands of years. There's stuff going on in like ancient Middle East, I think. Stuff happening in around 2000, stuff happening in the future on a spaceship. I don't know how it all comes together, but I've heard so many good things about this book. Maybe the only thing to caution you about for a novel, it's on the longer side. I think it's like 15 and a half hours long. But coming from reading Stephen King's The Stand and so many Tom Clancy books, like that doesn't feel long at all. Not long at all. So that's going to take me a little while longer. I'm intentionally kind of going slower because my book club discussion won't be until January. So I'll check back in on that in a future episode. You mentioned a podcast that you're enjoying. I'm going to talk about a podcast that I want to enjoy. I'm seeking the help of our listeners. I want a daily news podcast about the video game industry. I want daily video game news.
Ooh.
And the only ones that I've found are an hour or more long. And I don't need
daily?
Yes. I don't need 1 to 3 hours of daily video game news.
That's insane.
I want 5 to 10 minutes of video game news.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. So IGN used to have a podcast like this, but they killed it a couple of years ago, and I've never found a replacement. So if somebody has one, send it my way. I want something because I feel like I'm actually getting a little bit disconnected. Podcasts are like, they're really probably the number one way that I get news. So send me your recommendations. Hopefully there's something out there that's doing this. All right. Well, that's what's going on in my entertainment center. And that's really it for this week's show. So if you want to get a hold of us, head on over to the website, www.thedigitalmediazone.com. You're going to find all of our show notes there, links to everything that we talked about, and links to all of the ways that you can get a hold of us, our email address, our social media addresses. I'm at Josh Pollard on Twitter, Mastodon, and Blue Sky. I'm pretty much only using Blue Sky at this point. The website is at DigiMediaZone. on Twitter. We haven't made a Blue Sky account for that yet. It just gets to be a lot to manage. Richard, you're Richard Gunther on Mastodon. Have you joined me on Blue Sky?
And I am richardgunther.com on Blue Sky.
Right. That's weird.
I couldn't get at Richard Gunther, but I could register my domain name as my handle. So that's what I did.
Awesome. Are you liking Blue Sky? Are you using it much?
I am using Blue Sky primarily for tapping into the maker community. So I haven't followed a ton of people. I have a couple feeds, and I like the way it lets you set up and then create tabs for feeds. So I've been doing that, and I've connected with a couple people, but not enough of the people that I generally interacted with on Twitter are yet over on Blue Sky. Some, but unfortunately, many of them went to Threads. And Nope, I'm not giving Mark more money. I'm not doing it.
I guess I am technically on Threads also, but I don't ever look at that ever. I basically just look at these services that look like they're going to be a big deal and sign up for an account so I can get my name.
See, I should have done that when Blue Sky came out.
Right.
But I thought, why would I follow the guy that created this platform that everyone was frustrated with? So he just dumped it on someone else and then created a whole new thing that's pretty much the same. Like, that didn't make sense to me at the time.
I get it. You're not wrong, Richard, but man, it still does remind me of the glory days of Twitter.
It does, complete with the inability to edit a post after you've submitted it.
It's fine. I'm fine with that. I don't need that. All right. Well, we also try to do this show live whenever possible. That's typically Tuesday or Wednesday nights around 8:30 p.m. Eastern. But let's be honest, it's the end of the year. Then we head into CES. The schedule's going to get weird, folks. So we'll try and be as communicative as we can be. But if you can't make it to the live show, we do typically push the video version out to our YouTube channel. So head on over to YouTube, like and subscribe to the channel over there too. All right, that is going to do it for episode 670. He's Richard Gunther, and I'm Josh Pollard. Thanks for listening to Entertainment 2.0. Adios.
Goodbye.